Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 27th and tonight's movie is Jacob's Ladder. This is a psychological horror movie from 1990 directed by Adrian Lyne, the same person who directed Fatal Attraction. Jacob's Ladder was one of those movies that didn't really have that much of an impact at the time, but over the years gained a cult following. It actually has a very big legacy, not as much in film, but in video games, as it was a big inspiration for the Silent Hill franchise. The movie is about a Vietnam War veteran who is having hallucinations, feels like he's losing his mind, and it's him trying to figure out what is going on. The trailer I saw was one of those that says a lot but doesn't really give you that much information about the plot, which I do prefer over trailers that give away too much, but that means I don't really have that much to work with here. I haven't played any Silent Hill games either, so I don't really know what to expect at all with this movie. I'm gonna go check it out. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting to like this movie very much, but I thought it was pretty good. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. It reminded me a lot of Shutter Island. It's a movie that starts out normal, but as it keeps going, you realize how little you can trust what you're actually seeing. I did think that Shutter Island was paced a little bit better, though. This movie stars Tim Robbins, which I spent far too long researching whether or not he was actually related to Tony Robbins. I don't think he is. He stars as Jacob. As previously stated, he's a Vietnam War veteran, and bad things start happening to not only him, but other members of his platoon as well. Robbins put in a very good performance. He doesn't really have that strong of a character, Jacob, but he's likable enough, and you want to see him figure things out. Going back to what I said about Shutter Island being paced better than Jacob's Ladder, I think that one thing that really helped with the effect in Shutter Island is that it was very gradual. Things just slowly started to make less and less sense. The effect on me, at least, was that at the end of the movie, there was still a small part of me that thought maybe I could trust what I was seeing. With this one, the dementia starts almost right away. There's no seed of doubt. Things are very much not what they seem in Jacob's Ladder. But conversely, that also means they have a lot more time to really show the hellish nightmare that Jacob is living in. The dementia scenes in this movie were all over the place. Some of them were incredibly effective, some I didn't find effective at all. It's kind of hard describing the plot because it's just like Shutter Island. The plot is basically one twist after another. So most of that is gonna have to go in the spoiler section. I did find the story very interesting, and the ending was decent enough. While I certainly thought this movie is good, I think that this idea was done a little bit better in Shutter Island, though I do think that this movie is worth a watch if you're interested. You can actually watch the entire thing legally on YouTube. It's streaming for free, so if you're interested, check it out. And now some spoilers. The main question in Shutter Island is, was the main character crazy or was he just being lied to? In Jacob's Ladder, the central question is Jacob already dead and in hell? Or is he alive and there are actually people coming after him and wanting to make him suffer? A little earlier than I would have liked, it becomes pretty obvious that Jacob is not simply on Earth living his life. The scariest and most effective scene in the entire movie, and also the one that served as a big inspiration for Silent Hill, is the hospital scene. Jake gets injured and he is rushed to a hospital. None of the people know him or what's going on. And they say, let's take him to an x-ray, and then they start wheeling him away. And as they keep going, the hospital looks more and more nightmarish. Like, the walls start getting dirtier, there are less lights. He sees more and more patients that are clearly completely insane. Eventually, the gurney is just being pushed through puddles of blood and body parts on the floor. And it all comes to a head with Jacob being completely restrained in a hospital bed, like, all over with, like, screws in his temples and stuff like that. And the doctors are saying, "You're dead." I'm pretty sure the movie wanted that moment to be the moment where you're most supposed to think that Jacob is actually in hell, and they did a very good job with it. This is counteracted by some, I don't know if misdirection is the right word, but there's a scene where he meets up with a scientist who actually was stationed in Vietnam with him in his platoon, and they were talking about creating this, like, super drug that would create completely psychotic, kill-everything soldiers. The drug is called the Ladder, and it's supposed to tap into this carnal fear. That didn't quite match up with what we had seen so far in the movie, but it was at least a possible explanation. But by the end of the movie, it is perfectly clear that Jacob is dead. though it wasn't quite in the way that I was thinking. There's a character that presents like an idea that when someone is dying, if they really don't want to die and they're scared of it, they'll see it as this nightmarish thing where demons are coming after them. But if they're at peace with it, they'll see it more like angels taking them to heaven. And the movie ends with Jacob in his old house, and he sees his dead son like sitting at the base of the staircase, and the son like takes him upstairs into this really bright light, obviously implying that he went to the light. However, he did not die at any point that I thought he did. He was actually still in Vietnam. This was like the last few seconds of a dying man. And they say that while he did put up quite a struggle, he did look peaceful in death, which matches up with what the movie did. But it is kind of odd because now it's completely unclear if any of what we saw was actually relevant to what was happening or if it was just something that he came up with in his mind. Overall, I thought that Jacob's Ladder was a very solid horror movie. I didn't really think it was spectacular, but it was a good idea and it was executed well. Though I will say, that hospital scene is quite memorable. And that's really all I have to say about Jacob's Ladder. I'll see you tomorrow.